All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Jacobson. I serve as president of InfoReady, and thank you very much for joining us today. What you're about to see is a little bit different for InfoReady. Typically, when we do webinars, they'll consist of one or more of our university clients presenting best practices for whatever corner of the university in which they work. Today, we wanted to pause. We want to share some information with you that we've been gathering from our base of 250 clients since the beginning of this year. We feel that as this year has unfolded with all different types of events affecting higher ed, we have gathered some information that we think would be useful to you. Take what you want, and we are going to be doing Q&A at the end of this webinar, so we invite you to submit your questions through Zoom, and we can include them in our conversation at the end of the webinar. To get started, we'd like to establish some relevance. And if you go into the next slide, we'd like to talk about the way that universities make administrative decisions. We think this is relevant for the rest of our conversation. And the way that universities make decisions is different from the way that governments do things. It's different than the way that corporations do things. The higher ed method has really centered for centuries around the peer review process, the practice of collecting proposals from around campus, CVs from around campus, and making decisions about who gets what as an award. This is a cumbersome process. It has taken many administrative resources over the years, but there is some help on the way. If you look at the last several decades, with the introduction of computers and software, administrative processes have become more and more efficient. And this has been accelerated over the last several years with the trend known as digital transformation. Slide. However, what we've observed at InfoReady is that the technology available for digital transformation has been accelerating faster than the adoption of it by institutions. People and processes are taking longer to adopt new technologies than the improvements in the technologies themselves. So it falls on vendors and consultants like us to work with our clients to help them adapt things and become more and more efficient. Slide. But this is so critical right now. We won't go through the list of all the changes that have affected higher ed so far in 2025, starting with the pressure on indirect rates at the beginning of this year. But across the board, across our base of 250 institutions, we've seen cuts in costs, reductions in staff, all types of things that are putting greater and greater pressure on our clients to become efficient. Slide. And this need for improved efficiency is happening at the same time that universities are fighting for their importance, their relevance, their political power. And when talking to our clients about this, we're finding that the need to make really great decisions is more critical than ever. And to summarize it, we're finding that institutions need to identify and support and elevate high potential ideas and individuals on their campuses. They need to make sure that the best ideas and most talented people rise to the top, because this is what makes good universities great. Slide. And so the way that we help our clients do this is we really take kind of the 5 steps in any administrative selection process, and we put it under a microscope, looking for any available improvements. This includes the distribution of opportunities, the promotion of opportunities across campus, the collection of applications, CVs, proposals related to these opportunities, routing those things to reviewers so that they can be scored against some kind of rubric or collection of comments, and then the selection of the best awardees for each opportunity, and in some cases, the collection of progress reports from awardees over time. Slide. And so as we work to improve these efficiencies, there's a few things that need to be held sacred. We can't compromise the validity of the peer review process that has been in place for centuries. We need to make sure universities are making the best decisions. We need to make sure that they're transparent, that they're equitable, and above all things, we need to make sure that the reviewers who are helping to make those decisions are looking at accurate information. Data is incredibly valuable. And so if you go to the next slide, I'd now like to turn this over to my colleague, Max Steinerman, who's our head of sales, to talk about a particular example that's very close to our heart, probably the most important thing here at InfoReady, and it's research development. Making sure that as we improve processes around research development, that it's freeing up time for high-value activities that can really help to improve the institution. Max, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks everybody for taking the time to join us. So as Eric mentioned, I'm Max Steinerman. I'm the head of sales. Next slide, please. So I'm going to dig in a little bit to some ways you can kind of maximize your existing competitions in terms of the value, right? And these are ways that we kind of help our clients maximize the value of their existing processes. But if you're not an InfoReady user, hopefully these are things that you can consider as you're looking for efficiencies. So when we're talking about maximizing the value of our existing processes, we're really talking about optimizing the output, right? Whether that's quality or volume, however you're defining that, right? Lowering the overhead, the cost of administering those programs, and managing programs in a way that's both scalable and adaptable as your institutions and your needs change, which Ashley is going to talk about in a few minutes here. So if we're looking at internal competitions, we're really breaking down this efficiency and improvement into three columns here. So the first thing is obviously simplifying your application review and award making process. That means doing things like minimizing PDF forms, utilizing data validation to do as much kind of pre-checking of applications before they get into your merit review as possible, making sure your notifications are automated and clear, right? And so all of this will reduce the back and forth with applicants that you have in the pre-award process, and that obviously saves a ton of time, which saves money in terms of administrative costs. It also improves the applicant experience, which is really important. The next bullet here, empowering faculty and staff with a clear, transparent, and centralized process. So a high quality process results in more applications of higher quality and encourages applicants to reapply. So it can really have some long-term benefits. And this is stuff like improving the visibility of your opportunities, right? Clearly communicating with applicants throughout the process, and providing, constructive feedback to applicants at the time of notification, especially those unawarded proposals. Again, this will really encourage people to apply next year and improve the experience for your stakeholders. And finally, it's really important that we understand our data at every stage of the life cycle, right? So that we can adapt strategically and effectively and really understand the full breadth of ideas being generated at our institution. So whether that's using features like research keywords to tag to proposals or collecting, progress and ROI reports, um, you know, or, just not forgetting about unawarded proposals. It's important that if we want to understand the kind of breadth of knowledge being generated at our institution, that we don't just forget about, the knowledge that's in those unawarded proposals, which I think gets left out a lot. Next slide, please. So if we kind of extend this into the realm of, external limited submissions, right, which are kind of a unique use case, making sure opportunities are visible, RFPs are standardized, and deadlines are clear, right? Because there can be multiple deadlines with those limited submissions. That's really important. And then, as many of you know, the review process for limited submissions can be a real time suck. So reducing friction in the review process is really critical, right? Not just as a time saver, but also as a way of improving the experience and optimizing the experience of your reviewers. You'll get better, more constructive reviews the less friction you have in your kind of review assignment process. And having a tool that can accommodate the variability of limited submissions while still being efficient is really important. And for those of you who aren't already doing it, collecting progress reports, right, for things like publications, from your selectees is really critical to help kind of understand the value that you're generating and to demonstrate ROI. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague here, Carlos Moncada, who's going to talk a little bit about how better processes can bring value across campus.
Thanks, Max. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm the long-winded one of the group, so get ready. Uh, I'm Carlos Moncada, Director of Client Services at InfoReady. Eric and Max described how InfoReady works and how the platform transforms processes and operations. The world my team lives in completely focuses on ensuring customer success and facilitating increased adoption across the institution. The next speaker, Ashley, and I will cover what this means both in practical terms and the big ideas. And two fundamental issues InfoReady solves are disjointed manual processes and the related data silos that impact everything about the process. On the next slide, you'll see that we start in research offices. And Max covered that. So the common adoption path we see at institutions is InfoReady first being used in research offices and then expanding to other departments and units. Over time, a very large chunk of our clients have taken this adoption path beyond research. In fact, we frequently see institutions choose to have separate instances of InfoReady for colleges or schools or other major units on campus. You see that reflected here on screen a little bit, but they're used in so many other types of units as well. What happens is that research processes draw stakeholders from all over the institution, and those individuals then have positive exposure to and experience using InfoReady. They soon realize that the InfoReady platform has a flexibility to streamline all kinds of processes, including theirs. I've actually lost count of the number of times I've heard an administrator say to me that they had used InfoReady in a previous department. Happens all the time. And they say, "Oh, I remember you. You used to help me over here 3 years ago." I'm like, "You're right. I do remember you. And your dog's name is, Fido." Um, and then on the next slide, uh, there's some of the big ideas related to digital transformation here. Um, Staff and faculty often struggle with their existing tools for managing programs and processes. The disconnected data and workflows can create a lot of extra work, which ultimately prevents them from improving and transforming how the opportunities and processes are managed, and it takes them away from working with real people on campus, right? They're focused on pushing paper around a lot of times or solving uh, who to notify. Sometimes admins cobble together tools such as email, PDF forms, or Google Forms, shared folders for document storage, and spreadsheets. Uh, and they do this all in order to manually administer opportunities. I've heard stories of admins spending days, and I really do mean days, curating and distributing application packets for review, which is something InfoReady automates. So think about that. Potentially days saved on one administrative task for one opportunity. Then multiply that. Another other obstacle we frequently find and hear about are outdated homegrown solutions that are difficult to maintain and take too long to update. And when I say too long to update, sometimes it's as simple as an administrator saying, "I would love to update a sentence on this page, but I can't find the IT person, or I'm in the IT queue to get this page updated." Um, Thankfully, that doesn't happen with InfoReady. Admins are empowered to do that. And we're frequently contacted by institutions that can no longer maintain those homegrown solutions because solely because the IT person who built it left or is leaving the institution. That's a real pickle, everyone. Um, so the core idea is that InfoReady helps you overcome a lot of these obstacles. And on the next slide, um, I want to tell you a little bit more about how InfoReady provides a centralized platform that brings together all parts of the process in one place, all your stakeholders in one place, and it improves the methods of engagement with those stakeholders, be they applicants, reference letter writers, reviewers, approvers, decision makers, whomever it might be. The same platform that collects applications and forms also routes the applications and forms through a review and approval workflow for decision making. Thankfully, this is not overwhelming and doesn't require top-down mandates from the CIO's office. The way InfoReady can be deployed helps units adopt the platform at their own pace within a sustainable model that meets branding and security requirements. It can be as simple as adding administrator seats to an existing InfoReady site to adding completely separate standalone site, as I mentioned before. And also, Eric mentioned we also have a variety of integrations with campus information systems that help standardize data. Ashley's going to have some ideas on how to actually standardize data, improve data in a few minutes. Now, on screen here, you're seeing some examples of real use cases. Previously, I mentioned InfoReady being adopted by departments at the institution. Now, these use cases are what groups are actually doing. In the 2024 InfoReady survey, 76% of InfoReady admins use the platform for 2 or more types of processes. Now, with thousands of administrators using the platform, the types of use cases really add up. So we get a lot of experience and a lot of exposure to hearing how campuses are using InfoReady. And we can help them refine their processes for all these types of processes. You can see here, they touch on student processes, faculty, staff, and all different types of units, and all different types of engagement. Now, with that said, let me introduce my colleague, Ashley Whitfeld. Take it away, Ashley.
Thanks so much, Carlos. Hi, everyone. As Carlos said, I'm Ashley Whitfeld. I'm an account manager here at InfoReady. And so what that means is that I spend my days on phone calls, on emailing back and forth with our existing clients. And that might be people who are currently using the system or entities that are looking for ways to streamline their processes. So what I want to get into today are some of the lessons that I've learned with my clients having these conversations day in and day out. Next slide, please. So the first lesson that I want to talk about is building processes that you can repeat across campus. Shared practices across multiple entities on a campus will make greater efficiencies for everyone involved. And all of my colleagues have already touched on this a bit, but I think it's really important to kind of hammer this point home, which is take the best practices that you have in the realm of research and apply them in unique areas across the institution. This allows you to do the work without having to reinvent the wheel every time. And one of the things I'm really seeing on many campuses is that those that take a centralized approach are often able to be more impactful. So take a centralized approach to rolling these types of things out, whether that's multiple colleges across a campus or whether it's multiple institutions across an entire system. Now, of course, a centralized model doesn't work for every institution, but the premise of shared processes can still exist even when you're working within a distributed model. Next slide, please. The next lesson I really want to focus on is to prepare for the unknown. Operational resilience is another key area of focus for institutions right now. With current funding uncertainties, we're seeing less stable budgets, which can mean cuts to staff, not being able to backfill if a staff member leaves, and restructuring of roles, all which can result in the loss of institutional knowledge. A tool like InfoReady makes these processes easily replicable, but it's only part of the equation. A lot of work I've been doing with clients lately focuses on process mapping. And unfortunately, we tend to be doing that work after a staff member already leaves because that's when you feel the loss of a process most. So what I've been trying to do and focus on is, before that happens, creating a continuity plan, preparing for unseen departures and extended absences. And that includes a combination of the system that's going to maintain that process and all the records, and that mapping of the institutional knowledge and how it actually works. Next slide, please. The next lesson to focus on here is predicting your future needs and designing for clean data. So having these kinds of systems provides clarity and insight, but only if you can actually make sense of that data. This is really one of the most valuable lessons I've learned in my many years of doing this kind of work. Try to predict your future data asks. I know it sounds crazy, but imagine what's the institution going to be looking for 5, 10 years from now, and design your information collection with that end product in mind. We get so wrapped up in the day-to-day process of finding opportunities, promoting these opportunities, awarding, processing information. It's hard to think long-term. It's hard to actually stop and take a breath and think about what's my outcome, what I want to come out of this. And I know you're all probably looking at me with daggers in your eyes right now, because I've just essentially told you, I need you to do one more thing when you wear a million hats on a daily basis. But I promise you, this is going to make a big difference for the future, for future you. Simple tweaks like providing discrete sets of options instead of open text, or providing a text field instead of an upload, ways that allow you to pull data in easy ways, really make a huge difference. And if this is rolled out consistently across an entire institution, future data asks become available at the push of a button, rather than this arduous task that takes multiple stakeholders a lot of time to actually pull together. Next slide, please. So if an institution can put these 3 concepts in place, you can free up time to focus on the things that really matter. And right now, the things that really matter are finding those additional streams of funding. We all know that funding is a big issue at the moment. So looking into the corporate and foundation world for how we can increase those streams of funding. And it's recruiting, retaining, and truly supporting the people that make the culture of your institution what it is. So those are the lessons that I've learned along the way in working with many different stakeholders. And with that, I'm going to pass it back over to Eric.
Hey, thanks, Ashley. So Carlos and Ashley and Max talked a little bit about what InfoReady does, but if you're not familiar with our company, we have the most popular platform in the world of higher ed for managing all different types of selection and approval processes on campus, especially in offices of research for running internal grant competitions and limited submissions, and now expanding to graduate schools, honors programs, all of the different locations on campus that Carlos mentioned. When we sit down and talk with a client or a prospective client, it's always initially on a consultative basis to try to figure out what they're doing, how it compares to the other clients that we know who have adopted best practices in their given functional area. And then we try to figure out if there's a need or an opportunity for our software to increase efficiency in the face of declining resources and financial pressures. And we've gotten really, really good at that during 2025. So if you want some friendly folks to talk to, we encourage you to reach out to us. We would love to talk to you about what your needs and what your processes are, and see if we can help you out. With that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Carlos again to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Thanks, Eric. Hey, everyone. If you would like to submit questions, please use the Q&A tool here in Zoom. Don't use the chat. That makes it difficult to manage the Q&A. Use the Q&A tool. We do have some questions here. This first one, I think Max will be a good one for this. What part of the process do groups usually see the most improvement in?
Great question. So in terms of like minutes, hours saved, it's the transition from collecting the applications to, when they're assigned to reviewers, right? A lot of time is lost in compiling review packets, checking values and validating values manually before those packets go to the review committee, which obviously InfoReady automates most of that, but yeah.
Thanks, Max. I'll also add, we had a peer spotlight webinar a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now. Time's flying, everybody. where the AVP in research at Oklahoma State University spoke about high-profile undergraduate research program that is endowed by very wealthy alumnus from Oklahoma State. And on that, she mentioned that they save 3 weeks' time simply in the review process with the switch to InfoReady. That had a huge impact on getting decisions out, and it also improved the relationship with the reviewers, who are also notable alumni and faculty members throughout campus. So lots of benefits there. Here's another question. This one's for Eric, I think. Eric, question is, how do you ensure data security for this sensitive information?
Yeah, a good question. So it starts with our stack. Every client has its own separate tenant on our platform. Data is never mixed together. We also have a SOC 2 audit process that we go through every year. We're TexRAMP, StateRAMP, GovRAMP certified. And all of our employees are carefully trained on information security. So it is absolutely a requirement of our clients. In many of our clients' cases, especially ones that are using us for tech transfer, translational research, just simple, internal grant proposals that may have, implications for international patent rights. Their expectations of us are for very, very high security, and it's something that we've been really good at. We haven't had any security issues in the years of our operation.
Thanks, Eric. Here's a follow-up from me on that question that came in to flesh it out a little more. We hear people ask about FERPA and HIPAA compliance. So, Eric, could you address whether InfoReady is HIPAA?
We are both. Whether it's protecting student data or patient data, we absolutely can comply with that. Again, whatever documentation you need, we can provide it. I'll also mention accessibility with that too, given that it's another compliance process that we've had to abide by. We've gotten really good at making sure that all aspects of our platform are accessible. And if you have specific accessibility requirements, we're delighted to work with you on that.
Thank you, Eric. Here is one. Ashley, I think this is a good one for you. Do you have any feedback from institutions on how the reviewers like or have adapted to using the system to receive and review applications?
That's a good question. I think the reviewers really enjoy having one place where they can find all of the things that they're responsible for. So if you think about if something's deployed across an institution, rather than having, and let's say I'm a reviewer at your institution, rather than having to go to a box folder for this particular process, and then my email for this particular process, having a system like InfoReady deployed across the entire campus as a reviewer, even if I need to review on 7 different types of workflows, I have everything in one place for me. So it makes their lives a lot easier, streamlines their work, makes it easier to find everything that they need.
And I will follow up on that just to get more information out there. What kind of training do reviewers need to use InfoReady in order to use InfoReady?
It's pretty minimal training. It's really self-explanatory to use. We have a lot of, and I see them where at times, so I don't want to go into tons of detail, but we have a lot of resources out there, not just for our administrators, but for our reviewers or applicants. But it's really a simple process for reviewers to get in and kind of pick up and start using the platform.
Great. Thanks so much, Ashley. I'm going to turn it back over to Eric to close us out.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. And thank you to our audience for joining us here this afternoon. We may not have gotten to everyone's questions, but if you have some, feel free to reach out to us. Again, we're delighted to chat with you, and we're honored to be of service to over 250 different institutions across the United States, including over 100 Carnegie R1s. So whatever your needs are, we want to talk. And have a wonderful day.